Hello everyone and welcome to the December Game of the Month for the British Chess Magazine. And this month's game comes from the FIDE World Cup, which was played in Khanty-Mansisk earlier this year. And it's a game between two very heavy hitters in the world of chess, Kamsky playing with the white pieces, grade 2741, and Peter Svidler playing black, whose grade at the time was 2739. And the opening was a Ruy Lopez. Kamsky played e4, black played e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop b5, and now black has to decide how he wants to shape the game. Obviously there are many systems that black can employ in this position, from the sharp to the solid to the downright bizarre. But in this game, Svidler sticks with the main line, a6. White played bishop a4, maintaining the tension, knight f6, castles, and now the first sign that black is thinking about aggression, b5. Well, this forces white's reply, and now black has to make a fundamental decision. Does he play the archangel variation with bishop b7, which was the normal motivation behind b5, let's say 10-20 years ago, or does he play the interesting move bishop c5, which we may call the modern classical variation? It's kind of a fusion of systems where black plays bishop c5, like the classical or the Moller variations, and the archangel variation where black plays bishop b7. It's become a very popular weapon among the strongest players in the world. Black is basically striving to find an active defensive system which is 100% sound. Now in this game, Kamsky decided to try and strike at the black pawn chain immediately by playing a4. He's prodding at the weakness on b5, or the supposed weakness, before black gets fully developed. And in general, black's best move here is rook b8, just allowing white to take the a file. So we may see this as a very small victory for white. It's not quite clear at this moment how valuable the a file is going to be to him, and there may be certain positions later on in the game where black can actually retake the file with gain of interest. But nevertheless, Kamsky thinks this is the best way to proceed, and now he plays a usual Ruy Lopez move, pawn up to c3, which with the bishop on c5 hopes to give white the opportunity to play d4 with gain of time. Now, very interestingly, going back earlier in the tournament, the same tournament, Kamsky had played knight takes e5 against Kazimzhanov, and as he won this game fairly handily, it's a bit surprising that he didn't repeat this move in our featured game. Just to go on with the game against Kazimzhanov, knight takes e5, d4 was played, bishop takes d4, queen takes d4, Kazimzhanov played d6, and now white played f4. And after queen c3, knight c6, queen c3, knight e7, white seemed to be building up a nice attacking position after e5. So clearly Kamsky had gone away from this game, burned the midnight oil, and found that there might be some improvements for black on what Kazimzhanov did. So in this game, going back to the game versus Svidler, c3 was his move. Black played d6. I don't think there's any way that black can actually prevent white from forcing through d4, so Svidler's just got to lay back on the ropes for the time being and take the punishment. Black played bishop b6, and now white played bishop e3. Note that there's never any possibility that black may take this pawn on e4 because of bishop d5, forking both knights. So black must protect the knight on b7 before he can even contemplate doing that. Svidler decided to eschew all complications and castle, and white continued development with knight bd2. Well, now, when the dark square bishop leaves home in this position, the square e7, the move bishop g5, putting a pin on the knight at f6, is often quite dangerous. So Svidler decides to take action against that possibility and just settles for the solid move h6, and white responds in kind with h3. Note that black may have been interested now in playing bishop to g4 when the pressure against d4 is quite substantial. So white takes a little bit of time out to play h3. And of course now we see the advantage of this variation from black's perspective over the archangel variation, where black had already committed his bishop to b7. The bishop may, often the light square bishop, be more gainfully employed on d7, e6 or even g4 in this system. Well, rook e8. It's a nice balanced position for black. Basically, black's task is to try and activate his bishops in this position. White's got a notable small edge because he's got more presence in the centre, and everything's going to hinge on whether black can drum up some activity for his bishops as the game progresses. White played queen c2, protecting e4. Black took on d4, and then the knight came to a5. And of course, white does not want to cede the light square bishop at this point, so he has to retreat it to a2. And now bishop b7 was played. So now white is being asked to think about the pawn on e4. And I think his centre is being lured forward. As the white centre comes forward, the black's bishop come more into the game. Just going back, obviously black could have tried bishop e6 in this position, but I think there white would have taken, rook takes, d5, rook e8, and now knight to d4. And I think white's got a definite advantage in this position. He's got control of the c file, the c7 pawn is nailed down, and the c6 square is a glaring weakness. So I think Svidler's quite right to play bishop b7 in this position. And as I say, white's got to advance that e-pawn, or he's simply going to lose it. So e5 was played. Knight comes into d5. Well, of course, black can take this pawn, but opening up the d file doesn't seem like a sensible idea. I mean, knight d5, bishop takes b6. This is quite nasty for black. He's probably got to take back with the pawn in this position, and it's really starting to look incredibly nasty for him. Obviously, if he takes back with the knight, there are certain problems with f7 in this position. The thrust e6 could be strong very quickly. Queen f5 is coming into the mix, and the knight on a5 is looking rather loose. So all things considered, going back to the game, it's better to play knight d5. White plays bishop b1. Looks a very handy move. g6 by black. And now bishop takes h6. Sets up what, let's face it, looks like an incredibly good position for white. He's won an important pawn close to the black king, and he seems to have a very strong attack. But remarkably, a surprise is in store in this position, and it's possible that Kamsky might simply have misjudged his chances. I mean, it looks fantastic for white, this position. But let's just see what happens. First of all, Svidler reintroduces his knight back into the game, and now he's hammering away at the pawn on d4. He's also threatening to take on e5, so this is why Kamsky takes on d6, and now black recaptures with the queen. Knight comes to e4, queen comes into b4, and it seems incomprehensible that white could be worse in this position. But once he loses his pawn back on d4, incredibly, the black pieces turn out to be far more actively placed than the white pieces. The rook on e8 is much more meaningful than the rook on a1. I mean, white took pains to open the a file earlier. What gain has resulted from the opening of that file? It's a very deceptive position. Kamsky played bishop a2. Black took on d4. And now white played knight f6 check. Well, the point of that is clear. If black takes this knight, then the queen comes tanking in, and that's the end of the game. So this looks as though black's position is on the verge of collapse. King h8. Knight takes d4. Knight takes f6. Obviously the white queen was on pre, so white couldn't have just taken the black rook on e8. Knight c6 to block the bishops. And now queen h4. And at this stage in the game, Kamsky must have felt the position slipping away from him. The problems for white lie in his inability to anchor his position. He's got loose pieces. The knight on c6 is not altogether secure. The bishop on h6 is certainly not secure. White thinks, okay, I can take this rook on b8. But he's in for a really shocking surprise here. as Svidler played the brilliant move, rook to e2. And what a move this is. Possibly Kamsky couldn't have done anything about it. But the point of it is that if white takes this rook, which seems to be free of charge, black has the beautiful move, queen to g3. And amazingly, that polishes white off on the spot. The raking black bishops really do put the boot in on the poor white king. So rook e2, what a splendid move. Queen to c3, hoping to gain some counterplay. Rook takes f2. It's all too fast against the white king. Kamsky cannot withstand the pressure. Knight c6, blocking the bishop. And now rook takes f1. Double check. And amazingly, white resigned. So there we are, a very deceptive game and a blistering attack from Peter Svidler. I'm actually quite a fan of the black system that was employed in this game, which attempts to shake off the Spanish torture of the closed main lines and gives black lively counterplay. I'm sure black system will continue to be popular at all levels.